Now, it might be the cold medicine talking, but Sloth Bomb is sounding real good right now. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today JC has given us a real banger of an idea. It's a bit memey, and it's one that I've seen pop up in a couple of places, but the build looks pretty good here. The deck is built around Lumbering Megasloth from the Fallout set, which costs one less for each counter among permanents and players. Counters, you say? Well, what if we just have something that starts with 10 counters? That means that Lumbering Megasloth is going to just cost 2 mana. So this deck is theoretically capable of doing that very, very quickly. Turn 1 on a nut draw, but more realistically, a turn 1 Yavimaya or Dark Depths, followed by the other one on turn 2, gives you the requirements of both green, and 10 counters. And if that's not good enough, the Sloth Bomb is where we really get into it. We can then attack with our Lumbering Megasloth and Broadside Bombardiers for 10 damage, 8+2, and then we can throw the Lumbering Megasloth at our opponent with Broadside to just have lethal. So this is a relatively realistic turn 3 Goldfish with a Sloth and a Goblin Pirate. What's not to like here? We're going to have a mix of fast mana in this deck, some Spirit Guides and some Mana Dorks. There are going to be times where we would like to cast multiple spells. We are going to play Magus of the Moon, and I'm going to get into those interactions in a second because it can get a little weird, but this is meant to be our Game 1 lock piece, while Fury is our Game 1 removal, and we have a couple of mid-range cards that if we don't do something broken in the first couple of turns, we can lean on. Now, Minsc and Boo also has a -2 throwing ability. So sacrifice a creature. When you do, it deals X damage to any target. And if you happen to sacrifice your good friend Boo, well, then you get to draw some cards too. But the plus here is also relevant on this creature, as Minsc and Boo's plus can go on creatures with trample or haste. So if your 8/8 wasn't enough, how about 11/11 or 14/14 the following turn? All right, now let's go back to Magus of the Moon for a second. So, Magus of the Moon turns all your non-basic lands into mountains. And if you play a Dark Depths after Magus of the Moon is in play, then Dark Depths enters with 0 counters on it. No ice counters at all. Which means if you then get rid of your Magus of the Moon by throwing it with a Broadside, throwing it with a Minsc and Boo, targeting it with a Fury, whatever, you will get your 20/20 when the state-based effects are checked after Magus of the Moon is gone. So we can use Dark Depths to do unfair things with this, or we can actually just create a Merit Lage. We are playing a single Thespian stage in this deck to crop rotation for. It's not going to be a major portion of this deck. We're not really looking to assemble Merit Lage in the traditional way. We're getting kind of freaky with it. I made only very minor edits to the main deck here. I changed the sideboard a bit. There was one Endurance in Game 1 previously, which felt a little bit weird to me without a way to tutor for it. I moved all of those into the board here. There were originally 3 Force of Vigors. I added a Meltdown for variety, and I added the last 1 ring to the sideboard. I think there's going to be matchups where we are either going to likely board out Magus of the Moon or Fury or crop rotation. Like, there's going to be some 4 of that we don't like in this deck. And I just wanted to have a generic filler card in the sideboard so that I could, like, board in Endurances or maybe the 1 ring plus 3 cards or something like that. And I think it just kind of rounded out my numbers a little bit better for sideboarding. So the Sloth Bomb sounds pretty exciting to me, and if you need some cards for it, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome store run by some good people. If you need some Eternal cards, be that Legacy, Vintage, Old School, they've probably got them, and promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order when you order those sweet old cards. Or new cards from Fallout. Whatever. Alright, let's battle. Okay. Opening hand here just ends up working towards Thespian Stage combo. This is fine. And by working towards, I think I mean doing on turn 2. Right? So Yavimaya, Dark Depths, 2 mana, crop rotation, down to 1 mana, get Thespian Sage, Simian Spirit Guide, do the thing. Oh no, not a blue deck. So we have no Thoughtseize type cards here to check and see if this is going to work. If I wait a turn to play around Days, I give my opponent at least 2 more looks at Force of Will type cards. One from a Tamiyo draw, one from a natural draw step and cracking. Sorry, one from a clue cracking, one from a draw step. More if they brainstorm or ponder. So I think we're just gonna YOLO. All right, so green, crop rotation, sacrifice Yavimaya, Thespian Stage, target Dark Depths, sacrificing this. We are going to keep the one with no ice counters, which results in us getting a 20/20 on turn 2. Fuck yeah. Sloth Bomb. Land drop, Brazen Borrower. Fuck. They have to have it in hand. They cannot cantrip for it. Land drop. Tropical Island. Beans. Beans are not going to do it. My opponent can block with Tamiyo to stay alive for a turn. Hey, I was going to do that anyway. Send it. Opponent throws Tamiyo under the 20/20 bus. I do not need more land here. I'd actually like to hit a Spirit Guide so that I can Broadside next turn. Although I might honestly just Boseiju a Beanstalk. So kind of the next question here is my opponent 5-color Beans? Because if they have white, it's actually really easy for them to get rid of this. Cats are doing things in the background. You may catch a little bit of them today. When a brainstorm takes this long, it's usually a good sign for me. Alright, so now we got another Tamiyo to buy time. Fair. So what is more valuable for my opponent? The Up the Beanstalk or an additional land? Unclear. Send in. We have got another chump block. A fetch. Are you going to brainstorm now? Yeah, okay, so you are going to brainstorm to flip the Tamiyo. So notably, that did not get new colors here. Tamiyo gives -1. That's fine. This is still lethal. Tamiyo will, in theory, be at 4 loyalty if it pluses. I think I'm going to Boseiju up the Beanstalk. Oh, right, it costs 1. Legendary creature. If my opponent does not have white to get rid of this, they might be on just try to chump block this with Tamiyos and Murktide Regents and such for a very, very long time. Holy shit, no basic. Or there's some miracle on top of library or something. I guess there could be something like a weirdo Submerge out there. More beans. Okay, it is Murktide Regent. So that's the game we're playing. Do I have any weirdo lands here? No, not really. Okay. So I will go ahead and fetch a Broadside. Fetch a Broadside, cast a Broadside. That is a Force of Will. That's fine. We will get my opponent to lose their Murktide. Let's just always yield to that. They're doing a hell of a job of staying alive. And I don't know how many outs they are digging for as far as actually killing my creature goes. Alright, I don't have anything cute like a Bojuka Bog to do, so that's fine. So this is starting to get tough for my opponent, because now, if they cast that Ponder, they don't have blue for a Murktide anymore. That's a Shuffle. Alright, there's blue again. That is a Hooting Mandrills. That's just another raw card draw there. And that's the point where they run out of flyers. That was a great game. Really well played by my opponent in terms of, like, not giving up and digging towards out. Like, good job over there, Bob. Keep it up. Alright, so Submerge is a thing that my opponent could be playing in post-sideboard games. I don't know how likely it is. Rug Beans, not exactly common as an archetype in current Legacy. Given that I have seen my opponent not have very many basic lands, or any, maybe, little hard to tell, given that I think they wanted the cards that were on top of their library from that brainstorm. But my Magus of the Moon is probably good. My Endurances clearing out the graveyards are definitely good. Fury kills Tameo. Fury kills Planeswalkers. Fury kills Hooting Mandrills. That's probably fine still. I like Endurance a lot. This is going to be hating on Murktide and Hooting Mandrills while just, like, drawing my opponent's interaction. I think I can play this game without Crop Rotation. I think taking those out of my deck makes me much, much better against Force of Will. It means that the Megasloth is a little bit harder to put together, though. I think that's fine. I think we can play a fair game versus this opponent. I want this last one ring pretty badly. To get rid of a Fury to do that. And I think I like the rest of this as is. I don't think I'm going to cut any of the 25 lands. Oh, my cat wants the window open. Hold on. All right, so the Lumbering Megasloth is not currently live. I play Mana Ramp into Endurance. That's an okay hand. Am I willing to keep this? I think I have more powerful hands available to me. I am into this. Getting rid of one Yavimaya. I'm probably not playing something on turn 2, but Broadside is annoying enough to eat interaction, and then hopefully I just play the one ring and kind of run away with the game. I can surveil land. I don't need basic mountain. I do need basic forest at some point in the game. It's possible I get multiple basics because my opponent can have Wasteland. I believe we saw one in the previous game. There's probably not that many copies of it, and I am running more lands than normal in this deck. I think I am going to start out with a Surveil land. That should have been off Misty Rainforest, because this gives me more options than Misty does. Now, if I later wanted Basic Mountain, I could not get it. Alright, my opponent junks a Daze. That's fine. I'll do a Surveil land of my own. I'm going to say no to that. I think we have better draws. I don't think I need mana here. Humorously, I am punished for not playing Yavimaya last turn. So next turn I'm going to Lumbering Megasloth. Do I want to use Spirit Guide to Broadside now? I think so. I already have the one ring 2 turns from now off the mana that I naturally have. There's not red open for immediate lightning bolts. Good enough to get a response. Broadside's a very strange card in that it's not very good until it is almost instantly game-winning. Like, the Broadside on an empty board is not that strong, but, you know, as soon as something like the One Ring is in play, that is greater than a Lava Axe worth of damage at instant speed, that can also nuke most of the creatures that my opponent plays. That is a Daze, that is fine. So, are there beans? There are beans. So we're really going to be putting our opponent's Force of Will type cards to the test here. Alright, they've got it. We've got a Murktide Region for our trouble, which is great. I would love to draw an Endurance and clear out that graveyard before it gets much bigger. Alright, I love seeing a Ponder. I don't really want to see a creature hit the board here. Looks like it's Hooting Mandrills. The creature that is backed up by another Force of Will here is just disgusting. Wow, Mishra's Bauble. That is a strong, strong emphasis on filling that graveyard. Ooh, that's very good. That's very, very good. That's going to keep me off of the One Ring this turn unless I draw a Spirit Guide. So my opponent gets their redraw. Damn. That's devastating. Alright, I am unfortunately passing the turn here. I'm going to get smacked around by this Hooting Mandrills for a little while. Is there another threat? I'm so scared if there's like a Murktide Region as follow-up here. Oh, stop. I'm dead in 2 turns. And we need the One Ring to do a lot of work. I only have 1 Surveil land. Individual points of life might matter here. I'm just going to tap this for mana. You are late to the party. I am, I think, 1 Force of Will or Daze right here away from death. Let's see if my opponent has it. Yeah. So I am now taking 9 damage next turn. I basically need to draw the One Ring to buy time, and then we're going to need some very, very specific draws as follow-up. Oh, there's DRC in there too. Makes sense. Oh, I hate that. They put a card on top. Basically, all you want in this position is counter spells, so that's real bad for me. This is 9 damage plus a clue. I am at 6. And I get wastelanded off Yavimaya. That's rough. Thespian stage. I am dead here. The endurances are even better than I thought they were. And now, in this game, I'm just going to think about whether or not I would like a little bit more removal. I might want a couple of Pyroblasts. They can alternate, in addition to just killing Murktide Regent, they can also just back up something like Magus of the Moon or Endurance when it's a big deal. I could go down some Sloths if I'm not going to play Crop Rotation to try to line that up better. Like, this is really hard to remove if it gets in play. Same with our 2020. But I think the conceptual plan is win with these 3-drops. Just play them quickly. Opponent has some Wastelands to disrupt it anyway. Maybe we get more interactive for this game. My broadsides get a little worse in boarding like this as well. Okay, Endurance is really good, but the rest of this hand does not really do a lot. I'll try for something a little more consistent here. This is awkward. This has a really good set of cards. I do not believe that I am going to mulligan it, but this is admittedly awkward. It's 100% fine as long as I draw more lands or mana off the top. I would really prefer not to use Spirit Guide to Endurance. I might be using Spirit Guide to Red Elemental Blast that. Never mind, don't have to do that. So I can go ahead and do this on a basic here. So let's just go ahead and nuke that Tamiyo, and then we can play an Endurance around days, hopefully into a 1-ring, as long as we get a mana source in the following 2 draws. See if my opponent just has the beans again. Their deck seems very, very good when they have functional up the beanstalk. Ignoble Hierarch, not particularly exciting here. My current plan is end of turn Endurance, I think. If a fetch land hits the graveyard, I believe that I need to cast Endurance so that Hooting Mandrills does not enter play. Ponder is fine. The 6 is the magic number. Like, mana plus cards in graveyard. When that is 6 or above, it starts getting scary for me. Wasteland, sure. End of turn, I'm going to go ahead and use my mana to cast this Endurance. All right, it hits play. I'll nuke my opponent's graveyard. And then I'll see what happens here. I might get wastelanded immediately. That would not surprise me. My opponent waited for a really long time for the Endurance to resolve. I wonder if they just have a daze or something. So I'm going to... Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to jam the 1-ring this turn. I'm going to wait 1 turn and see if I can play it around days. If I don't have anything to do next turn, I will just play it. As, like, this deck very much does want to be jamming Haymakers. We haven't seen much in terms of removal that actually takes an Endurance out of play. We haven't seen something like an Unholy Heat yet. I don't think we've seen something like a Brazen Borrower yet. My opponent has very much been of the mindset, like, counter things and then play my own large creature. This is where I would love to just draw a Magus of the Moon and slam my I win button. Wasteland is fine. We have a very solid mana base for that. Pyroblast is fine. I'm going to wait a minute to use that. I would love to Pyroblast a Murktide Regent, and I would love to have backup for the 1-ring. That's fine. I'm not going to Pyroblast something that looks like that. Shuffle is good for me. All right, there's the Murktide Regent. And with this draw trigger on the stack, we are going to go ahead and attempt to counter this Murktide Regent. My opponent fights over this. I likely resolve the 1-ring on my next turn. Okay. So I will keep sending in with Endurance. Opponent is at 10. I don't suspect that they have Force of Will. I think Murktide Regent deserves Force of Will. And we're already playing around days. Well, I'm fucking wrong. That Murktide Regent stabilizes the board so well versus Endurance. I'm surprised to see the Force of Will held back. Not saying it's wrong, I'm just surprised to see it. Like, the Endurance is still a 3-turn clock here. Maybe if they have more things like Hooting Mandrills just available, it's totally fine to do so. All right. Send in. Opponent is at 6. I think we are officially at this is a real threat territory. And it resolves. Surveil land is really weird for me right now. It's very, very powerful, but I could be taken off of a draw like the One Ring or Minsk and Boo if I choose to Surveil. Ooh, there's some tension there. But I have cards like Broadside and Magus of the Moon that are very close to instant I win buttons. And another Endurance is also just incredible. One way or another, this is going to be a very close game. I think if my opponent stabilizes, there's a very good chance that they win. That is a Petty Theft. And they junked a Murktide Regent. So I think in the short term, I'm not doing anything with the fetch land. I'm just keeping it to play Endurance around Days. 5th land drop. Hardcast Force of Will is live. This is a small Murktide Regent, which is fine. Murktide Regent as a 4/4 is good enough to help out with the board as of right now. Ooh. Ooh. Goodbye, Murktide Regent. Come on. Come on. I think I'm going to be a little greedy here and hope that their final card is not. So there's DRC side versus accidentally growing Murktide Regent. I think I'm actually just going to cast my Endurance now when it resolves 100% of the time. I, in theory, could need red for Fury, but I think I'd rather just not be wastelanded. So I think we'll just resolve this right now. Clear your graveyard. And I'm passing the turn here. I think this board state is currently favorable towards my opponent. These Pyroblasts that I have boarded in are looking very, very good, by the way. That is not what I want. So, opponent's not playing out Brazen Borrower. A lot of this is just going to come down to, does my opponent have a counter spell when I draw my next Haymaker? I think the Surveil land is currently worth it. Everything other than Fury is fair game as of right now. Yep, absolutely. All right, opponent does not wasteland me. I actually want to leave Commercial District up because there are red and green cards that I could draw here. We'll see if their final card in hand is Force of Will. It is not. It's another land drop for me. Don't have good attacks right now, but hopefully the One Ring will just bury my opponent. They are not casting this Brazen Borrower. I'm not sure exactly why not. It could be that they're trying to play around some sort of card like Fury on my end. I'll take a little damage in upkeep. Oh yeah, that's the sort of stuff that we want to see here. That's also just very good. So step 1, let's get rid of that. Then I'll cast a Broadside. Fine with playing Ignoble Hierarch 2. Alright. Nothing happens when I go to combat. That's great for me. Oh, nope, here it is. Lightning Bolt on Broadside. Okay, so I could attack with a 4/5 creature. I don't think I need to do that. These DRCs, as of right now, currently need to attack in. So I think it is fine for me to just hold back Endurance and block those. It's possible that they could play a Delve card to make these not have to attack in. One other thing, my opponent... Well, never mind. My opponent was also getting low on time, so they can't just play a sit there and try to wait it out game, either because of clock or because of the One Ring burying them. That was an awesome round. GG's. Wish I drew a Magus of the Moon to make my life easier against my opponent's greedy mana base, but we got there. It was tight, though. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Yeah, this looks good. So we have turn 1 Hierarch into the surprise turn 2 Megasloth. The Fury is not doing a lot right now. All these extra lands aren't doing a lot right now. But like we are doing something powerful by Legacy standards. An 8/8 with trample on turn 2 is like better than Murktide Regent levels of interaction. I'm getting dazed. That's fine. That's probably a, like, use it or lose it days. Broadside. I'm gonna try to get my Commercial District value, and if this gets wastelanded, I'm okay with that. I don't think I want the Spirit Guide. The Spirit Guide can help me play around another Daze, but he's otherwise a very unexciting card. I think I'm going to ignore a secondary Daze here. We've got a fetch land. An actual factual fucking Baleful Strix in the year of our Keranos 2025. Uncommon bird sighting. It makes my Lumbering Megasloth a little bit worse, but, like, we have things here that can get a Baleful Strix out of the way. Will I be punished with another daze for my hubris? No, but we do get Force of Willed. So thinking ahead to sideboarding, whether my opponent is straight blue-black or Grixis, my Magus of the Moons are probably not going to be fantastic against them. Oh, shit. Well, I don't like this. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. You're 8 toughness? 8 toughness is fine. Somehow. Let's ignore the fact that there's going to be another pile of Animate Deads and Reanimates in this deck. I could be a crazy person and just try to kill my opponent in 2 turns. I think that's crazy person talk, though. Like, I can just send Fury at face for 7 points of damage and then try to do it again, and that is lethal over 2 turns. But I think I am just supposed to kill the Megasloth. Oh wait, I can do this, right? Yeah, I can do that. So deal that initial damage, and then broadside, throw at the Megasloth. But holy shit, we are going to be bad versus another Animate Dead. Like, it can grab a Fury and kill my broadside while leaving respectable power in play. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to think these Reanimate cards are kind of good in Legacy. Okay, we dodge in the short term. And I am 1 card away of a couple different varieties from doing something pretty broken. But I am a Mana Source or a Dark Depths away from doing something broken as of right now. That's an Archon of Cruelty. Okay, alright. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Opponent didn't shuffle. Everything is not fine. Land drop. Yeah. That is no bueno. Alright, so is there any world where either one of these cards matter with my top decks? Sloth just gets sacrificed on attacks, and it's hard to put into play. I think I discard the Sloth. But life's bad. 1 ring would be cool. So I could play a Fury. That does not get me anywhere. So I am unfortunately passing the turn. And this extra life here for my opponent is so strong. I don't think it matters which one of these I discard much. I'm going to keep the Spirit Guide. Without being able to accumulate cards in hand for lines like Broadside plus Fury, my life's just real tough right now. Opponent gets to Surveil, junks a land, and we're dead. Well, that game was starting out fine. Pile of Endurances in. There are things like Baleful Strix over there, but the more Pyroblast type cards I board in, the worse I am against the black cards that are actually going to kill me. I don't think I am interested in Magus of the Moon against my opponent's troll deck. My red removal might not kill Goyfs, which I am going to be anticipating in the post-sideboard games. If my opponent's got Baleful Strix in game 1, they are probably trying to go a little bit bigger to have a leg up in the mirror match. So I think Moonman becomes these. I almost wish I had a Bojuka Bog for crop rotation. That would have been a really good singleton to add to the sideboard. I absolutely don't think I wanted in game 1. But having 9 graveyard hate cards rather than 4 sounds pretty good. My Sloths and Furies are kind of liabilities. It sucks how poorly this lines up versus Archon of Cruelty in particular. I might want to Chalice of the Void. Like, go down on 1-drops and attempt to lock my opponent out of Entomb and Reanimate. I can very frequently do that on turn 1. These then get a little worse. I could play 1 more 1 ring. Am I just going to try to shove Magus? I think sideboarding with this deck is incredibly difficult. Not having had that many reps with it. This is not doing anything unfair. Or at least not unfair quickly. This is not the turn 1 Chalice that I want, but this is the turn 2 Chalice that I am getting. I will keep this, getting rid of a Fury. And we will hope that my opponent does not have the turn 1 Entomb specifically. I think I am going to lose keeping this hand. I do not think it is a mulligan, but I think I am going to lose keeping this hand. Just Underground Sea and pass, which is scary because that means there is a very good chance that Entomb is going to happen in response to this Chalice. And Entomb Reanimate is fine, but Entomb Animate Dead just gets around what I am doing. That is a Force of Will, pitching a Daze. I can try again next turn, but next turn might be too late. Always yield to that. Okay, not Entomb. Thoughtseize is really annoying here. On 2 different levels. It can take my Chalice, which my game was built around, or it can give my opponent a reanimation threat. Either way, it's pretty bad for me. I am a mana away from doing something relevant. And the chip damage that I'm doing is not great. I'm getting a little weary of the blue-black Reanimator shell. I'm not going to lie to you. It has just, like a cockroach, survived every banning wave that has tried to weaken it. Alright. Am I dead? Losing this mana source feels like game over for me. Now I lose my 1 ring. Okay, we're lucking out. I mean, we're kind of lucking out, right? Like, I am attacking for 1 damage, and my opponent is 1 top deck away from obliterating me. Sure. I think if you have the Fatal Push, you just use it on your own turn to keep me from casting my more expensive cards that I could top deck. Let's Surveil. I do not need that land with the cards that are currently in my hand. Thespian Stage, not particularly strong here. And now we're in this awful waiting game. I will turn Thespian Stage into a red source because I do have red cards in my deck like Fury. Endurance is great. I'm going to cast that in my opponent's upkeep. I just don't want to give them more looks at Force of Will blue card to stop this. Never mind. Life is cruel. Alright, just passing the turn. Please don't let the 1 card be Daze. Alright. Yavimaya is fine. So, notably here, this is counting counters. So, the 1 ring is adding counters. These could become castable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of 12. We're a little ways away. But we are trending in the correct direction. Alright, so let's do another check here. So this is 6, 7, 8 of 12. I'm going to go ahead and Chalice on 1 here. That stops Reanimate, specifically. And we'll play a threat. The Noble Simian Spirit Guide has arrived. Alright, no play from my opponent. I will draw cards pre-combat because we have things like Broadside. Nope. Alright. Send them. Opponent is at 9. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of 12. Alright, bud. Alright. Here we go. The hard way is not dazeable. It's in play. Did you have hard cast one of those? Well, I mean, like, not for 2 mana on your bingo card for today. Because I did not. Alright, opponent has unlocked a Brainstorm by bouncing my Chalice. How big is Archon? 6, right? Yeah. This is 8. I get to attack into an Archon, theoretically. Fatal Push. Okay. Fatal Push can clear the way for an Archon trigger to actually kill my Lumbering Megasloth. It does not happen. Boy, that game was scary, though. That was a long game. That was turn 9. I think I'm not messing around with Magus of the Moon still. I think despite the awkwardness, I like the crop rotations in the board. Do I want to go down on something like Fury and be better at backing up cards like the 1 ring in Endurance with Pyroblast? My opponent that game was very, very heavy on fetching the Underground Seas and the Surveil lands. And I have not shown them any Magus effects. So I could go down on Furies or Megasloths to play Magus of the Moon and try to have an oops, I win button that I can shove on turn 1 or turn 2. But sometimes my opponent accidentally plays around it. So I guess how scared am I? And how much fair removal do I want to leave in for things like Goyf or Baleful Strix or whatever? Kind of wild that these became hard castable. Oh, maybe we try to lower the curve on the draw. I just need mana. But this hand is not doing anything fast and does not have a green card to pitch to the Endurance. I think this one's no-go. This plays turn 2 the 1 ring and hopes it works. I think I'm going to say that that's fine. I think I'm going to keep all of the mana here. I don't want to play Boseiju as a land if I can help it, because Boseiju can technically answer an Animate Dead. It's just really rough if I get thought seized after making this decision. And here's where what I was talking about with my opponent sometimes accidentally playing around Magus of the Moon effects. There is a Dark Depths. I am more interested in a Surveil land immediately. Alright, land pass is perfectly fine for me. Although the Magus type cards that are in my deck are now basically dead if my opponent fetches a basic island. I do not want that forest. Chalice is fine. I'm going to get a basic forest here and throw down a Chalice. My opponent has the opportunity to Entomb in response to this. Doesn't happen. That's nice. Now let's see what's going on here. Alright, it is a Surveil land. Magus cards alive again. Opponent says no to Force of Will. This asshole. Yeah, no, this is one of my very real concerns. I'm going to put this into unhappy noises. I am not hard casting these. These are mana for if I draw something like the One Ring. This card's so fucking hard to answer for red decks. Yes. Good God. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to singularly die to this card. It fucking gets back Brazen Borrower to break my opponent out of Chalice. We're dead. We're absolutely dead. Yep. I will play on pretending like I am not dead, but it's over. Wow, not even willing to bounce the Chalice. Sure. Actually, I guess that's fair, like, if they are just worried about dying to a 2020 at this point. I'm dead in 2 turns to this, unless I start chump blocking it, which I really don't want to do. But I guess I am now at the point where it makes sense to do so. We've got movement from the opponent, nagging a basic. I could just put Brazen Borrower directly into play. That would not be crazy here either. Yeah. And a Brainstorm. We are up to a 6-7. So big. So I'm down to 4. If opponent gets another Brazen Borrower. Okay. I'll take my draw and see if it's the One Ring. I get Wastelanded. I can still play the One Ring. Not anymore. Now I don't have enough mana. At this point, I will tap out. I am not getting there at this point. GG's. You've got it. All right, I'm going to keep my opener here. We are working towards Thespian Stage Dark Depths combo with this hand. We have a respectable amount of mana, or if something goes wrong and I have to pivot, but I will have to top deck something reasonable to do. Fuck. So this is going to be a deck that has a bunch of things that beats Merit Lage in a very, very unfortunate way for us. Maze of Ith is a problem. Wasteland is a problem. I think we're YOLOing it and still trying to do it. I think a lot of times this is not going to work. I took a little time to think about whether or not I wanted to just crop rotation. Hold on. Do I have Wasteland in this deck? No, I don't. Sorry. Took a lunch break, getting dialed back in. And so I took a minute to think about whether or not I was going to Wasteland, and then I remembered I do not have Wasteland. Yes. I will pick up a new forest. I'm actually super happy to see that Ghost Quarter used, because if that was just held up, I was secretly fucked. So instead, I crop rotation, get Thespian Stage, I play Dark Depths, Thespian Stage, target Dark Depths, using a Spirit Guide, keep the one with no ice counters, and we see if my opponent has Swords to Plowshares, I guess. There's also, like, Expedition map for Maze of Ith. That's a problem. I think we're unlikely to win from here, but I think this is my best chance of winning. I guess it's possible I could try to surprise my opponent by waiting, but if I wait and my opponent just, like, naturally draws Wasteland or Ghost Quarter and plays it, then I can't combo off anymore. Sphere is fine. Do you have the Maze of Ith? Caracas. Okay, yeah, same deal. Is bad. So now we're pretty likely to lose to Rishadenport Sphere plus Construct Token. I have a bunch of lands here. That's the good news of this situation. Bad news of the situation is that it's really hard to do things with the cards that I draw. Ah! Thanks, I hate it. So now my ignoble hierarch just pays for itself forever, and I'm going to get ported down. This is garbage time. I fully believe that we have lost this game. I am going to play it out because, like, I do have very powerful things that can happen, like Magus of the Moon, that can spin this game on a dime. Just with port and wastelands and ghost quarters and such, it is going to be very hard for me to thread the needle and work towards a win. And an 8-turn clock doesn't sound that impressive, but it's good enough here. Not even making another construct token, making my things harder to cast. So this currently costs 6, and I have 5. My opponent will pay for their construct. I'm going to stop narrating paying for our own things unless something interesting happens there. All right. Pressure is really on now. Mox Diamond. That means that Rishadan Port is live. Means it's real hard to cast the One Ring. Likely means that I'm dead. This turn I'm going to pay for this like so that I can theoretically block if I need to. Yep. So I'm going to make a land drop, block for 5, and then try to do something cool with the One Ring from 4 life. Not the best. So I'm going to block and take 5. I go to 4, which is really 3. So this doesn't feel great. I think the Surveil land is important. All right, so I get ported. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can cast the One Ring and draw Magus of the Moon. I think Magus of the Moon is great in the matchup, but I don't think this is the time for it. I need to find something that answers or otherwise blocks those construct tokens. I hate showing my opponent the Magus of the Moon in a game where I am likely dead, but I think it's just gotta happen. Foothills is not an optimal draw. Giving my opponent so much information by playing this out here. But I don't quite feel dead. Feel dying. Feel mortally wounded. I'm not quite in death throes. So for example, I could broadside, throw a One Ring at a construct token, and then find something else to chump block the other one, and maybe stay alive. Maybe. Yet another sphere? It's real rough, if so. There's a life from the loam. Yeah. Okay. So I lose 1. They don't know that I'm beating Life from the Loam or Urza's Saga long term. Yeah, that's fine. Got more basics here. So, Broadside is 5 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That leaves me with 2 mana, which is not enough to do anything. So I can kill one of these construct tokens and die to the other. All right. I want this extra One Ring. I want these endurances. My Dark Depths base stuff is not great. Furies, generally speaking, aren't that good unless my opponent is playing Free Strider Lookout, in which case they become pretty reasonable. I think I'm going to get rid of Fury. I think I'm going to not crop rotation. And I think I'm going to play both Meltdowns and Force of Vigors under the rationale that Magus of the Moon plus destroying or otherwise stopping a Mox Diamond can be a very good way of shutting down my opponent. The Lumbering Megasloths and the Dark Depths combo will be a little bit awkward without the crop rotations, but I think I need to just board in a shit ton of cards here. So, turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 nothing of real substance, turn 3 the One Ring, with Force of Vigor to take out an opposing permanent. I'm going to say that this is an unexciting keep. This is not the Turbo Magus of the Moon that I would really like when I am on the play. But I have my Singleton Thespian stage to turn on any Dark Depths that I find in the future. I think that's fine. Let's ramp. All right, no initial thing for me to Force of Vigor. I am just going to Surveil land in this turn cycle and attack for 1. Unimpressive. But sometimes it's what you gotta do. Opponent has a Surveil land of their own. And Wasteland. It's actually annoying here, as it's going to keep me off of the One Ring for my own turn. I think I live with that. I think I really do need the Surveil land. I'm not going to keep that. Ooh! Hot damn, I get to cast the One Ring. I didn't think that was going to happen. I'm going to grab a basic. Super happy I did not get Wastelanded. I think I might have showed my opponent that I don't need mana by surveilling a land into the graveyard in the face of Wasteland. Spirit Guide is whatever. Oseju. Oh, that's so good. What? My opponent has the ability to exile my One Ring, and they chose not to. They let me untap with it, so now I get to draw more cards. Yes. We take that. Now I get an Endurance that I can hard cast. That seems fine. Does not seem like I need to do it yet, though. I'm going to give my opponent... I'm not going to give my opponent the ability to tap that for mana, actually. Let's pitch a Sloth, and then I can just exile this from their graveyard, so I don't have to worry about Life from the Loam. Okay, no further plays from my opponent. So I'm going to nuke their graveyard, but more importantly, this just lets me attack for 3 more points of damage. My draws are definitely unexciting, but that might not matter if my opponent is just not doing anything. Opponent goes down to 15. I don't think I need to show Thespian Stage yet. I think I'm just going to go ahead and make a friend. Do I want 2 friends? I'm not really exposed to Tabernacle right now, so I think I can have 2 friends. Opponent has an Endurance of their own. Sure, that makes playing my Spirit Guides worse. I think it's reasonable to clear my graveyard there and just put 3 fetch lands back into my deck that maybe don't have many targets remaining. Doesn't matter until I shuffle. Iboseiju. So we're not attacking with Spirit Guides immediately. We're going to just get our value off of Endurance here. A second Endurance is fine. This is going to trade an Endurance for an Endurance, which is not really a problem. I'm going to Thespian Stage here. I think just copy my opponent's Wasteland. And I'll make them make some decisions about whether or not they would like to remove my Wasteland. They would. Maze of Ith is annoying. Expedition map is not currently crackable. I think I'm just going to Boseiju that Expedition map. Like, the Maze of Ith is very beatable eventually. I think I might have a harder time beating something like an Urza Saga that gets tutored up here. Sure. Fantastic. Opponent did not get a basic there. Ooh. This is going to be Swords to Plowshares. Yep. That's fine. I don't have good attacks right now, but neither does my opponent. I believe that I have more Haymakers than my opponent does. Magus, Fury, Broadside, One Ring. Yeah, no, that is the one card that I did not want my opponent to have. They are opting not to Wasteland me. Meltdown not particularly good right now. There's an out to Urza Saga type stuff, though. Hey, speaking of, it is Urza Saga. I'm in bad shape again. Tabernacle is just a lot here. Ghost Vacuum, sure. And now we just start getting to, do I want to play this out for the next 10 minutes? I think I'm going to take a couple of draw steps. I need to have at least 4 mana for my own turn. I think that means I'm going to give up the Spirit Guides. I just need to be able to top deck and play the One Ring. I will have Hierarch pay for itself. Hey, that's why we do it. Know what your outs are and play to them when you can. So now we start trying to work towards finding Magus of the Moon to shut off my opponent's lands and then melt down the Urza Saga tokens and the Ghost Vacuum before they do crazy things. Oh geez, there's Field of the Dead coming. I need to find that Magus of the Moon quickly. Otherwise, it is going to eat me alive. I now can't play out of Dark Depths for the rest of the game. Also, my opponent could create an Urza Saga that lasts forever with Thespian Stage. Opting not to attack with Endurance. Oh, that's fine. Hierarch will pay for itself. I draw some cards. That's not what I need. I can hardcast this on Exploration. I don't know, I could also just cast another One Ring and then pitch cast. I think I'm going to leave open the mana to hardcast the Force of Vigor, though, because sometimes my opponent taps awkwardly and... Oh shit, actually. No mana, 1 mana. Oh, I can just get rid of the Exploration and Urza Saga right now. And there is not a Construct token. Yeah, okay. Then let's do that. Yeah, you can vacuum my friends, that's fine. Then I put my opponent in this situation where they are forced to either Deploy Urza Saga or Wasteland. And that either or is quite good for me. There's a dredge. So multiple wastelands in the graveyard. My opponent can take out my non-basic lands relatively easily. Okay, so they are going on the Urza Saga train, and now they're going to push damage with Endurance. So let the record show that I could be at 3 lower life here already from the previous Endurance attack. I am at 12. Eric pays for itself. Ooh, Endurance is great. So let's do this. Broadside. Playing the Yavimaya gives my opponent a bunch of extra mana. I'm fine with that? Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. So I think I go bam, combat, attack with Exalted. My opponent can maze this creature, but I will then throw the One Ring at your face for 9 points of damage. Sorry, to put you to 9. Then I go bam, 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 and we deal with this Life from the Loam. Yeah, you can keep Ghost Vacuuming, that's okay. I clear Life from the Loam, then assuming I get Wastelanded once, I can probably just One Ring Broadside kill at some point in the not too distant future. So there's the Wasteland. The Yavimaya is actively good for my opponent, so they're going to keep that around. So I believe I am paying for Endurance and Broadside and letting Hierarch go. It had a good run. It'd be a cool time to draw Dark Depths. Wooded Foothills is also perfectly fine. That means that I can always play the One Ring next turn. Although I think my opponent is probably dead right now. Alright, so I lose 1 Broadside. So I'll send in. Opponent makes an Urza Saga token. It is a 2/2. I'm going to clear those tokens with Meltdown. I think I awkwardly nuke Endurance so that I don't lose Broadside. And I'm comfortable enough with things as is. Handful of creatures ending up under the Ghost Vacuum. Now we see what happens with, like, Urza Saga. It's my hope that I just nuke these tokens and play the One Ring next turn. That's annoying. That buys my opponent a lot more time than I would like to give them. This is a sorcery. It also makes me have to melt down for x equals 1 instead of x equals 0, which is kind of a big deal. Now this game drags on, and Field of the Dead also is coming. Let's just draw a Magus, huh? Let's just draw a Magus. Ooh, I already used my Surveil land. I didn't need to do that then. I will pay. Oh, opponent's dead. Just outright dead to this. No sphere in play or anything. So this is x equals 1 to clear all of that. This is the Sloth Bomb. No white mana up as well. So Dark Depths, play Sloth, go to combat, swing in, Broadside, target your face with the Sloth Bomb for 14. We unfortunately do have to play another game. Okay. Stepped away from the computer for a minute. I don't think I am changing anything in sideboarding here. Like, the Furies become a little bit better knowing that my opponent has a handful of Endurance. I still don't know that I want them. They are difficult to hardcast. I have 2 Magus of the Moon in this hand, which is awesome, but I have no ability to put them into play, and I could get Life from the Loam locked out of this hand pretty much immediately. That hand does nothing. What's the 5 look like? The 5 is great. 5 is very, very good. We keep that, getting rid of a Sloth. I think I'm going to get rid of Ignoble Hierarch. Am I crazy to play around Tabernacle to that extent? Maybe that's crazy. The Hierarch just lets me go Magus much easier than Spirit Guide does. Alright. Pithing Needle on the One Ring just instantly. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. More Hierarch. Obviously a basic here, given that Magus of the Moon is coming. So the Magus of the Moon is not going to be taking my opponent off of colors. The Magus of the Moon is going to be stopping my opponent's utility lands. Say no to Maze of Ith here. Swords is good. Slows me down. Oh, cool. I don't have to expose myself to Wasteland here. That's actually quite good. I'm also happy that Swords hits a Hierarch and not a Magus. So the dream world is my opponent plays something like an Urza Saga this turn that I will just eat when I play Magus of the Moon. Nope. Yeah. Magus of the Moon as a cold as like a hard read would be good. That's a great card for them to name. I'm going to go ahead and crash in for 1 with Ignoble Hierarch here. See if they randomly swords this before I drop a Magus. 18. And Magus. So my opponent has some really good things against cards in my deck going on here. What are they doing with this? Another Disruptor Flute? Oh no, it's Life from the Loam, returning 3 mountains to hand. That is scary. That's one of the combos in my own deck. That's interesting. I think I just play another Magus here and just solidify the fact that like these cards are staying in play. I'm gonna hold Boseiju as a land for a little while. Like I have some very real things that. Oh fuck! I was supposed to Boseiju, or no, Boseijuing the Mox Diamond might just result in my opponent getting a new basic. Maybe not anymore though. I guess I'm glad I waited. Endurance is a thing off of this mana. I don't even think I'm attacking yet. I think I'm going to use 2 mana to Boseiju this at my opponent's end of turn, and then just play the 1 ring, and we can attack with stuff later. Yeah, goodbye Pithing Needle. Oh, I could have attacked with Ignoble Hierarch. I think risking that in combat is fine. So let's get this going. Get protection from everything. Start drawing some cards. Again, I'm just not going to expose these to Endurance, even if my opponent does not have it. It feels like double Magus just wins me this as long as I don't fuck it up. And we can play a Broadside that costs 5 mana. Or also just attack with a 4/4 Magus. That is fine as well. Oop, I miscounted. Spirit Guide. Okay, and that is enough for my opponent to concede there. I'll never know whether or not they had the endurance, but I was correct in my estimation that I simply do not need to expose myself to that level of risk. That was a slog. GG's. Okay, we've got a weird one. I think it's a keep. It can go a lot of different ways quickly. So, the Magus of the Moonway is unlikely to matter. We're probably playing against a mono-black Leyline Helm deck of some kind. And that land is probably indicative of me being right. I'm going to try to hold Boseiju for a little while. I think Magus of the Moon is not a card that I am going to play. I think that's going to be a pitch card to Fury. But if my opponent plays another non-swamp land, even though they're a mono-black deck, I might be able to cut them off of their mana with Magus of the Moon. Not anymore. Swamp. And a reanimate, yeah. Now that unfortunately has 5 toughness, and Fury deals 4 damage. So, we've got some work to do. So, that'll do. So play as a land, red and 3. Play Minsk. Yes. Let's minus. Boo. Draw a card. Yuri. Pitching Magus of the Moon. Finish off the troll. I've already played my land. That's my turn. I've got the 1 ring as follow-up. And my opponent's leyline means that they can't just reanimate my Fury and decimate my board. New Swamp. And Hymn to Turok. I mean, that's very good, but I have an active Planeswalker in play. Yes! Sloth Bomb? Oh, I need to plus 1 time first. So plus here, go to combat, swing 5 with Exalted. Opponent is at 9. Drop rotation, sacrifice Boseiju, get Dark Depths, play Sloth. Lethal on board a couple of different ways here, just in combat damage and also with throwing things with Minsk and Boo. So we need to just not die to Helm this turn. Let's see if they have it. There is 5 mana. They have 1 card left. Is the last card Helm? Yes, it is. That's very unfortunate. Why do you hate fun, opponent? I was about to have a lot of fun. That'll do. So, Force of Vigor is fine. Meltdown is expensive for answering the things that I would like to answer with it. An extra 1 ring is probably fine. Magus of the Moon is pretty weak here. Endurance does some stuff versus Reanimator. The Reanimator side of deck. I'm not, like, overly excited about playing those. I'm also not overly excited about Fury. Fury itself just doesn't answer things well. Glyphs can be bigger than it. Trolls outsize it. I think I am going to play Endurances over Furies. Itch casting Fury is going to be a little tough. This does not have starting green mana to get me going, so despite the fact that it has a very good combination of cards, I just can't use them. So my opponent says, I'm very sorry for the disgusting deck. I'm still your biggest fan. Not if I fire you. Let's be real, I can't be mad at someone for Leyline helming me. I've responded, I was so close to the Sloth Bomb. We'll get it this time. I think I'm throwing back the second crop rotation here and keeping this hand. Notably, it looks like my opponent is playing something very similar to, I think I will have released this yesterday for you all, the Black Helm list that I recorded with. Hopefully they're having better luck than I did, though. Because my beseeches were not good. So we hierarch now. Then assuming that I have my cards in hand, I've got really powerful stuff coming up. Dark Ritual. I do not want to see Thoughtseize here. Yeah, I need to keep crop rotation. Fuck. Well, this is what the One Ring is for. These sorts of scenarios where we take a beating early. Oh, come on. So opponent's at 8. If I top deck a threat here, and I did, I might race them back. Ooh, this is tight. This tramples. The amount of damage that I am currently blocking is not relevant. So we've got 8, 16, 24 for a 3-turn clock. I have 4, 8 for a 2-turn clock. So I'm taking this hit, going to 12. Are you paying life? Yes. Douthie Voidwalker. That's 8, 11 next turn. Okay. Sure. So we pitch the Spirit Guide to do this. Those cards can go back in your deck. Crop rotation. I'm a mana short of doing something cool with. So I am getting in for 4, putting my opponent to 1. I am dead to Orcish Bowmasters. Like one point of damage does me in. If my opponent holds back the Sloth, I have to go wide of them before Douthie Voidwalker kills me. Spirit Guide is fine. So I will crop rotation, sacrifice Taiga, get Dark Depths, 2 mana, cast my own Sloth. No good attack into this, but next turn hopefully I can go wide of them. There's now a crop rotation under there that I think is not relevant. I wonder if my opponent shocking this in is a deal breaker as far as this game goes. I'm not saying that it was wrong to do so at the time. And in fact, it was probably correct to do so. Oh wait, am I dead? Fuck. So I block 4 of that. I'm at 2. Now can you answer the Sloth? Beseech. Bowmasters doesn't do it. The One Ring, which was cast so my opponent gets protection. So then I die to Douthie Voidwalker. Attack out of spite. Go, Sloth, go! Alright, we're dead to Douthie. GG's, no counter here, so my opponent doesn't die to their own One Ring. Very, very tight game. Okay, we are probably playing against Grixis control. That's what this pilot tends to play. My opening hand has Dark Depths and Megasloth, and the One Ring for a little bit later. This hand is not really going anywhere quickly, but I am 1 green Spirit Guide away from this being silly, or 1 Ignoble Hierarch away from this being silly. Signs point to Grixis still. Broadside is fine. I think I'm just not going to Surveil Land immediately. I think I'm just going to play this game on basics for a little while. Yep, fully what I expected. Crop rotation is not doing anything right now. It'll do things in a little bit. Oh, I lost Broadside. And an immediate Brainstorm. Now opponent can sculpt their plan based around what they saw and junk a card off of their Brainstorm. I will take 1. I think I'm just going to continue my plan to play this game on basics. So, let's play a big ol' threat and pass the turn. Sheoldred's Edict answers my threat. I have crop rotation for a 20/20. I don't know that I'm the most interested in trying that immediately. Nice. Well, let's do that again. I think I am trying to save crop rotation as the thing that I do when my opponent's resources are exhausted. Fuck this guy. This guy's so good. He just beats everything that I play. 5-6, fuck that. Do I now have to attempt Dark Depths combo? I don't really want to, because I want to cast the One Ring. Yeah, I think I want to try to exhaust some of my opponent's resources before I do that. So, I don't know how the next turn cycle or so is going to end up going. I've tried to play around an Edict specifically. That's super annoying. Yeah. I think I crop rotation now before my opponent has another look at Force of Will. So I have a stage in play as something that I am now threatening. Opponent gets Thoughtseize. Alright, we're staring at each other, and there is a Thoughtseize. So my opponent can take a Fury to take me off of nuking Narset and Baleful Strix and leave me with the ring. I get to make my 20/20, but my opponent could answer it. I can't hard cast Fury because I kept both of my basics. Sageoing Strix is a thing. I think I'm just going to go for this now. Produce my 20/20. I can now Boseiju for 1 mana on Baleful Strix. And now I have a more profitable attack on Narset. I think stopping my opponent's looks at Narset looks with Narset is important. A Cling to Dust, sure. So, my opponent could attack in to gain 6. It is another Sheoldred's Edict, unfortunately, which is super annoying for me, and undoes my work of taking Narset. Looks like the Goyf did not hit anything. That's not super strong here. I think I'm doing it. I'm not overly excited about it. That is a Force of Will, unfortunately. Pitching a Nimble Obstructionist, which is this Stifle thing. I think I am 1 spot removal spell away from death. My opponent will get 2 draws, 1 from a Cling to Dust, and 1 from a draw step to answer my Sloth. If they do, I'm pretty unlikely to win this game. Petty Theft, yeah. That's probably the end. So I go to 5 from that. Opponent goes up to 26. Can get yeah. No, that's real bad. I think the One Ring is not going to get me out of this from my current life total, even if I top deck a land. I'm going to try. Alright, we're in play. I draw a card. There's another land. Opponent can't put in Brazen Borrower right now. They can Cling to Dust again. Cling to Dust is not a very good Magic the Gathering card, but if you are putting 6 extra cards into your graveyard every turn cycle, a lot can be forgiven. So, that's not bad. Bowmaster. Brutal. So I go to 3. Snapcaster Lightning Bolt. Okay. Yep. That'll do. Endurances are great. Pyroblasts are good. Again, these Pyroblasts are not killing the black creatures. Is repeatedly a problem. My opponent has enough basics that free rolls with Magus of the Moon are probably not valid. My opponent has enough things at varied mana cost that Chalice of the Void is not particularly good either. Sheoldred's Edict with Snapcaster Mages is not great for me. Means that the Merit Lage side of the deck is kind of weak. My cats are committing crimes in the other room. I'm powerless to stop them. I don't know what you're doing. Trim crop rotation, trim a little mana. Oh, I have an extra One Ring. That needs to come in. I guess at that point, that's 4 of these. Those are my in-out numbers. The One Ring is great. It is exactly the card that I want in this matchup. I'm not doing anything in the opening turns, and I think if I'm taking no early game plays, my opponent's end game is just better than my end game. I'm going to keep this and hope that it goes somewhere. This is not overly impressive as it stands. I'm going to need to top deck a reasonable card. Some sort of Endurance, One Ring, Minsk and Boo thing is what I am looking for here. The Thoughtseize losing Broadside is really bad for me. That means that I am probably playing Spirit Guides as attackers, which is not what this deck wants to be doing with its mana. Never didn't have it. I didn't lose faith for a single moment, did you? Of course not. Why would you? So we will crash in for 3, and then each one of these now represents a lava axe to the face. Not that I am confident that my creatures are going to stick around, of course. Bowmasters is very good here. It is multiple bodies while also denying me mana when I am on multiple spirit guides. Blah. Don't love that. It's happening. Cast a spirit guide. Go to combat. Declare attackers. Send in. If my opponent double blocks, I can throw something, but I think I just take my 2 damage while killing the Bowmaster. It really does not feel good, though. Like, that was 2 cards to answer half of one of my opponent's cards. I think I really want this out of play because it does brick the One Ring as a draw for me in the not-too-distant future. Alright, there's 3rd line drop. Sloth is not great currently. I don't have mana to make another play. So I'll send in for 2. Life's bad. I have some very strong top decks still. So, for example, I can draw Dark Depths, play Sloth, and just do the Sloth Bomb, and my opponent dies. Like, that's the dream. Oh, it's a Kaito. That's not great for me. So my opponent is now going to stun my Broadside and keep me from doing cool things. Man. Ugh. Alright. I was sitting there thinking in my head that this is an incredible force of will. And it happened. So I think Kaito just takes over this game now. Like, I stumbled, my life total is low, my opponent has stunned Broadside and can continue to do so if they want. I can try to surveil in my way out of this, but this is very much no bueno. So I take more damage. I'm down to 7. Oh, they are surveilling. They don't even see the need to stop my Broadside. That means their other cards in hand just do that. All 3 basics now. Culligan's Command. Yep. So I think this is the point where I just concede. I don't really know what gets me through the Planeswalker and my opponent's 5 cards in hand, but it's certainly not that. Yeah, I think we can stop pretending that I am in this game and be happy enough with a 2-3 finish. GG's. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Not bad for what it is. JC, as far as the build goes, I give it a thumbs up in game 1. I think this is capable of doing powerful legacy power level things relatively quickly. A lot of the things that this deck are capable of doing simply did not happen, though. Like the Magus of the Moon to turn Dark Depths into something that just as soon as Magus dies, I create that 20/20. That is not something that happened in this league, or something that I was ever, I think, working towards setting up. Honestly, I feel like I want more haymakers. Like, maybe the 4th One Ring, and maybe another Minsc and Boo should just go into the main deck. There were a lot of times where I just wanted to top deck another piece of fat. So I think if I were going to run this again, I would consider Magus as something in the sideboard, and I'd try to play a couple more. I would definitely put the One Ring into the main deck, and then I would either play a couple more standalone haymakers. You could play some selection like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, or you could play a couple more Thespian stages and have a more reasonable chance at assembling Dark Depths plus Thespian stage in your opening hand naturally. The land count of 25 largely felt fine. I'm glad that I had all of the green spirit guides to support casting Lumbering Megasloth quickly, and I am glad that I had a few Simian spirit guides as well. You might be able to tweak with the mana numbers a little bit and maybe cut a mana source. Ignoble Hierarchs were fine. I don't think I want something like a Mox instead of them. The Ignoble Hierarchs sometimes ate opposing removal so that Broadsides or Furies or Sloths or whatever didn't later. As far as the sideboard goes, I like the things that are there, but if I was going to play this deck seriously, what I would do is I would sit down with the top 5 or 6 decks in Legacy, and I would write myself a sideboard guide and try to figure out what the in-out numbers look like. The crop rotations were one of the weirdest things to me, because they're kind of essential to cast Lumbering Megasloth. Like, those are just my additional copies of Dark Depths to do that. but they were also one of the things that I really wanted to be boarding out versus the blue decks that have counterspells, so there was some tension there. And I was wanting to bring in a bunch of cards versus blue, like Endurances and Pyroblasts, and often the One Ring as well. And that meant that I was often trying to stick in like 7 or 8 cards, and that's a lot. So it may be that there's too many of some things in the deck, and there's room for some adjustment and tweaking of sideboard numbers to smooth everything out. Overall, though, this was fun. The games were tight. The games were intricate. We lost a little bit more than we won, but I am overall happy with Operation Sloth Bomb here. And if you want to play this deck, promo code ThrabenU saves you a little bit when you order cards. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!